Welcome to this episode of the Smart Leaders Sell podcast. I'm Jessica Lorimer, sales coach and leadership expert, and I am really excited to dig down into today's episode. Okay, so in this Wednesday 10-minute extravaganza, we are talking email lists versus Facebook groups. Dun, dun, dun. It's like the competition of the year. So this is an interesting one, and I've been getting this question a lot recently. People have been asking me, Jess, why should I build an email list when Facebook groups are much easier to build? Or saying to me, Jess, I just don't get it. Like, why do I need to have an email list or a Facebook group, and vice versa? What are the benefits? What are the differences? And so I just wanted to do a quick 10-minute episode on the differences, the features that are involved, and the pros and cons. Because for me, and we all know, I'm a die-hard email list fan. If you are not on the email list yet, make sure you head over to the show notes and get yourself on there so that you can be my pen pal for the whole of December and get some access to some of the cool sneak preview peaks that are coming. But there's got to be a reason for it. There's got to be a reason that so many people are fans of one or the other or both. And that's what I want to talk about today. So let's start with Facebook groups, because let's face it, Facebook groups are actually pretty easy to set up. In terms of the technology required, it's not difficult. You go onto Facebook, you click on groups, you click create group, you name it, you give it a purpose, you give it some keywords that are searchable. And away you go. Whenever anybody searches for, female entrepreneur or, spaceship manager, they're going to find your group and they can join it, and it's free and it's low commitment for them. Now, I've had a Facebook group. I've had a Facebook group for almost 3 years now. And honestly, in the beginning of my business, when I was about 18 months in, when I first set it up, it was phenomenal. Like, I loved having a Facebook group. It was so much fun. It was a really easy way to meet people. And they didn't even have as many of the features as they have now. When you have a group now, you can ask joining questions. You can ask people, why are you here? What are you looking to learn? What's your email address? Do you want us to send you anything? And if you're not using your joining questions to get email addresses, make sure that you change that after today for all the reasons that we'll talk about in a sec. So why have Facebook groups kind of got less popular? Because if we're honest, they have. Facebook groups are now, they've become a saturated market. Everybody and their dog has a Facebook group for something or other. And actually what it's contributed to is this sense of overwhelm and this constant consumption of content that is terrifying for the majority of people. However, they're still great for new business owners, right? They're still great for new business owners or anybody who is new to exploring a topic or some kind of major change in the business area, in the lifestyle area, in the health area, or relationships, right? So anybody who's just going out there and they're sort of first starting their foray into their own personal development around their health, their wealth, their life, their relationships, Facebook groups are great. Because obviously they are already on Facebook, and that's where you do kind of look for stuff, right? You start following people on Facebook, you start finding business pages, you start finding groups, and once you hit upon one group as a searcher, you kind of think, oh my God, there must be other groups out there for other dog lovers or other horse lovers or other people who are on a particular diet or weight loss journey. And this has always been really interesting to me because people love this community. And my mum was actually saying it to me recently. She had a health issue a couple of years ago. She had to have a specific operation, and she looked on Facebook. She was like, oh, I just wondered whether there were other people on Facebook who were having the same operation. And there were, right? There were huge groups about this particular health issue. And she went and she joined the groups, and she said some of them were great. And she was like, and some of them were just full of people whinging about stuff. She was like, it's very negative. Everyone got very upset. You couldn't have an opinion. And so in the end, once she'd consumed the information that she needed, she left the Facebook community. She didn't find that she needed the support anymore. And that's when she started going out there and she started looking at other resources. She started listening to podcasts. She started, going onto the internet, reading blogs, subscribing to blogs, that kind of thing. And actually, buying information on the subject. So she was buying books. She was, got an Audible subscription. She did all that kind of thing. And that's how the majority of people are. We like free information in the beginning when we are exploring an idea. And that's where Facebook groups can be super, super useful. But when we're starting to take it seriously, the majority of people like to invest. They like, even if it's a small investment of an ebook or a PDF or something like that, because they know that they're going to get results quicker. Okay. Now, the great thing about having a Facebook group is that it is immediately accessible. Okay. There are over 7 billion people in the world, and around 80% of them are on Facebook. So if you are building a Facebook community, arguably, yes, you do have a little bit more access to people in the market. Whereas when you're growing an email list, you have to put great content out there in the first place that attracts people, that is searchable somewhere on the internet. And that can take a little bit longer. Okay, and that can be a little bit more challenging, especially if you are newer to business. And that's why a lot of people tend not to do it. The downside to Facebook group, okay, so the pros are that you can get a lot of people in there. You have arguably more access to people because the majority of people in the world are on Facebook. Facebook has its own search function, so it does make it easier for people to find your content and to access it. But the downside to Facebook is this constant content overwhelm. Okay, it's this idea that consuming endless content is actually quite hard work. And after a while, you will find that people start to get burnt out from it. So they start unfollowing groups, or they start, not actually going in and checking in as often. Or worse, the Facebook algorithm takes over and completely destroys any reach that you had in your community. And that can be really frustrating, because when you're building your business on somebody else's platform, it's kind of like building your house on somebody else's land. You have no power if they decide to change anything. And that's what we've seen in the last year. That's been one of the biggest bugbears about Facebook groups, is that people will say, well, the algorithm changed and now I have like 3,000 people in my Facebook group and I can't talk to any of them. None of them see my posts. None of them know who I am. None of them know that I lead the group. It's become a dead zone or a tumbleweed zone. And how do I re-engage it? Now, if you want to know how to re-engage a Facebook group, there's a guest episode coming up in a couple of weeks with Shoshana Chain, and I'm talking to her all about re-engaging your audience. I'm not going to go into that particular strategy right now. But what I will say is that whilst building an email list initially may be more challenging, because you do have to create content, you are responsible for going out there and promoting it, you are responsible for getting people to join your email list, and it is a little bit more of a commitment. Generally, with email lists, you have an awful lot more control. So if you do it in the right way, if you set up your email list, if you've got a good welcome sequence, if when you're putting people into opt-in processes, you're offering a good upsell, and you're selling to them regularly, two things happen. One, you train your audience to buy quicker, okay? And people actually, when they're on your email list, are more committed to you because they've had to give you something. When we commit to a Facebook group, all we're really doing is hitting the join button, and we don't always even see it in the feed that often, right? If the algorithms are not your group's friend, people might not even see your posts. When you are on somebody's email list, that person is indicating, I actively want to see your content in my inbox. I'm choosing to consume this regularly. I'm choosing to consume it as regularly as you will send it. And that's a very different mentality, okay? They are more committed to you at the beginning. Now, when we talk about training them to buy, obviously, if you've got these good welcome sequences, if you've got these great opt-in sequences, and you're placing offers in front of them early and regularly, it normalizes the buying experience for your audience. And again, if you want other ideas on normalizing buying experiences, we've got a whole episode on that from a few months ago. The link to that is in the show notes. You can go and check it out and look at how you can normalize that buying experience, your customer. But this is really, really important, because when we get people on this list and we're training them to buy early, we're training them to buy regularly, we're also establishing know, like, and trust right from the beginning. Because when people commit to your email list, you also have to commit to them. So if you tell them when they sign up, you're going to get an email every Wednesday and every Friday, like my emails, you actually have to do that. And if you don't do it, people start to recognize, oh, well, if you can't even send out an email on the day that you say you're going to, well, what else can't you do? What else won't happen if I choose to work with you? Okay, so it is, you set yourself a standard when you run email marketing. The other thing about email marketing, the other pro here, is that you have a lot more control over what gets said in your emails. You don't have to abide by certain rules, and you never have to play the algorithm. Okay, yes, you have to watch your spam score, you have to make sure that you're doing things to get the highest deliverability rates, not having tons of HTML code in there, not using massive images, not necessarily having swear words in your subject lines. Those are all things that will contribute to your spam scores and lower your deliverability. But barring those things, actually you have sole creative rights over your emails. And if people report your emails and say, oh, I didn't want them, or something like that, not a lot really happens. Okay, yes, sometimes your spam score goes up a little bit and your deliverability gets affected, but you'd have to have an awful lot of people who reported that email. Okay, whereas on Facebook, if you write something in your group and somebody really takes against it, they can report you to Facebook, and Facebook can shut your group down tomorrow. And that has happened to people. I've seen people who've had groups of 10,000 people or more who've had them shut down overnight for no apparent reason other than Facebook took a dislike to it. And that's a scary, scary, scary place to be in, right? So if we look at emails, you have complete creative control. You have a level of commitment from your audience, which means they're much more likely to buy earlier. You create a level of commitment from you to your audience, which means they get to establish that know, like, and trust factor from you. So what are the cons? Email lists take longer to grow. Okay, and that is the biggest con to them, because generally an email list is something you have to work at building, and it's something that actually can cost you a lot of time, it's something that can cost you a lot of energy, and it's something that can cost you a lot of money. And so that's one of the main reasons that people don't do it, is because they lack the traffic. Okay, so when we're on Facebook and when people are searching for keywords, like I say, it's pretty easy to see groups, they just pop up. But if you name your opt-in something super snazzy on your website, people might not necessarily be searching it. And so actually you miss opt-ins. And the majority of people who are blogging or podcasting or vlogging or anything like that, they don't always have the traffic levels to grow their email list to huge heights immediately. And so people mistake this and go, oh yeah, well, I don't have a huge email list, so what's the point? When actually 100 people, having 100 people on your email list is way more profitable for the majority than having 100 people in a Facebook group, because of the commitment that we were talking about earlier, because of the, the fact they're choosing to have you there, because of the fact that you can sell to them more regularly and they're actually going to receive it. Versus algorithms, not seeing certain posts, not having the same level of commitment to you or to what you're offering. So, what I always see is that people go, well, yeah, but it take me ages to grow an email list. And, how profitable will it be? Well, the simple thing is, and John Lee Dumas talked about this in his episode, if you do things that are high barrier to entry, you will find that, yes, they are harder to set up. Email lists are much harder to set up. But there's a reason in the internet marketing world that people ask for the size of your email address when you are doing things like joint venture partnerships, or when they are looking at interviewing you for podcast series, or when they are looking at including you in summits or giveaways. And it's because we all know that email list audiences are more committed, they tend to buy more often, and they tend to be more invested in the content that's coming through versus generalized audiences. Okay, so I know that having an email list, you might be sat there thinking, but Jess, it's all right for you because you've got a big email list, and that is true. But it's taken me 4 years to grow. However, because in year one, I realized the long-term value of having an email list and the long-term sustainability of my business was going to lie in having an email list, I continued even when my peers were telling me, well, I'm just going to get a Facebook group, I'm going to do that, I'm going to have more people in it, and it'll be easier to start. And so as time has gone past and those people have shut down their Facebook groups, we're talking people who've had groups of 10,000 people plus, they've shut them down because they aren't as profitable, because they take up so much time and energy and money to run. I've built this email list and it's been consistently profitable year after year after year. And in fact, last year contributed over 65% of my revenue. Okay, so if you are thinking from this, okay, well, I've got a Facebook group, but actually I do need an email list, start using them in conjunction with each other. All right, there's no reason why they have to be totally separate things. Start using your joining questions to get email addresses. Start telling your group members, hey, look, Facebook could shut this down tomorrow and I'd have no way of communicating with you. Whereas if you're on my email list, you're going to be able to hear from me once a week or twice a week, however often you email. And that's actually a more valuable experience, okay? And if you want some ideas on email marketing and how you can use email marketing in your business, again, 2 weeks ago, I did an awesome, I will say it myself, an awesome episode on email marketing that you can go and listen to. All right, we've run slightly over today, but I hope it was worth it. I will see you on Friday for our amazing guest episode.